Welcome to Forthright. As the city of Spokane and every other city in the state of Washington continues to wrestle with the challenge of affordable housing, here was a column inspired by a reader suggesting that we need to start with defining affordable. He's a mortgage banker, and when he ran the numbers, well, the headline by the editor tells the story. As published Thursday, March 30th, 2023, in the Spokesman-Review, housing affordability faces mathematical obstacles. No politician intends to make housing less affordable, but math doesn't care about good intentions. Higher prices are the accumulative effect of land scarcity, plus rising taxes, fees, and regulations at every level of government. Every house demolished by WashDOT to build the North Spokane corridor, and every buildable lot bought up by the city as open space pushes the numbers in the wrong direction if the goal is affordability. Mortgage banker Mike Hogan of Chimney Rock Mortgage in Spokane has run the numbers. He doesn't see any way to add the 38,000 affordable housing units Spokane reportedly needs without significant changes in our understanding of the problem. Affordable is defined by U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development as being within reach of a household earning 50% of the area median income. Within reach means not spending more than 30% of household income on housing, whether paid to a landlord or a bank. Hogan started from the income and worked backward to figure out what this hypothetical household could afford. For a two-person household, 50% of AMI is an annual income of $33,650 or $2,804 per month, according to HUD's 2022 chart for Spokane County, and 30% of monthly income equals $841 a month. Hogan used the interest rates listed by the Washington Housing Finance Commission House Key Opportunity Program, which also helps with down payment and/or closing costs to eligible families. At this week's interest rate of 6%, our hypothetical household could afford to buy a $102,500 home. Their monthly mortgage payment of $840.25 would include principal and interest at $603.40, property taxes at $106.77, homeowners insurance for $85, and mortgage insurance for $45.08. The only problem is $102,500 will buy an empty lot, but not much more. This is not going to be solved by a 10% tax abatement in downtown Spokane, Hogan said. So what about outside downtown? The cheapest lot listed on Zillow today costs, today was $68,000 plus a brand new 710 square foot, 2-bedroom, 1-bath, factory built modular home, cheaper than stick built and on sale until Monday for $72,974, plus estimated closing costs at 10% equals $155,071, plus somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 for a foundation, plus moving the modular into place, plus impact fees and utility hookups. So the math says that that's double what our hypothetical household can buy. What about a village of tiny homes? From a lender's perspective, it's no different than an old-fashioned trailer park. If the homeowner doesn't own the land underneath the home, it has to be financed at higher interest rates as personal property. In a best-case scenario, our affordable tiny home, or almost tiny home, sits on land owned in common by a homeowners association and can be financed like a condo. It doesn't make the math work any better. Hogan described a potential client who was looking at a condo-style tiny house built in 2008, listed at $179,500 plus 10% closing costs for a total transaction price of $197,450 and monthly HOA fees of $216 per month in addition to a mortgage payment. So the answer must be density. A fourplex built on the same cheap lot would make 4 affordable units, right? Not so much. A stick-built fourplex has to meet more expensive code requirements than 4 factory-built modulars. Builders can do that math. And by the time the numbers are crunched by the developer or landlord on taxes, fees, utility hookups, property and liability insurance, plus a reserve fund for repairs and paying themselves for their work, it doesn't add up to affordable housing. The $4 billion housing bond issue requested by Governor Inslee won't change the math. State-funded projects face the same costs as private construction. What Washington contractors have been saying for years is a 15 to 25% premium for public projects over the same work constructed under private funding. Red tape is not cheap. So, if new starter homes can't be built affordably, what about existing housing stock? Traditionally, the affordability niche has been filled by older homes as households increase their income and trade up. That's not happening now. People who nailed down an interest rate of 3% in 2021 are reluctant to move now that rates are at 6%. The hot refinance market has stopped the churn. Scarce land, inflation driving up building costs, the unintended consequences of expecting new construction to bear the cost of expanding infrastructure serving an entire community, all of these make housing more expensive. The perspicacious politician will stop and check the math. Not the math of good intentions and smooth talking points, but the math of bankers, builders, and developers. According to Hogan, if the city really wanted to build affordable housing, they'd have to give away the land, put in the infrastructure, and even then it wouldn't be affordable to the lowest income people in the city, Hogan said. The bankers' point of view hasn't been heard in the local debate over affordable housing. They should be included. Math is their thing, and it's all about the numbers. So realizing that that's a lot of numbers to absorb in a podcast, and it was hard even to read them. A clipping of the original article is posted to Substack for your reference. Reader feedback was positive, and I think that's because it's just numbers. It's hard to get mad about the numbers. But first, a note about those perspicacious politicians. Perspicacious was a challenge from another reader who wanted to see if I could work that into a column, and so I did. So reader feedback on the column. From Carol in Colbert, Washington. I'm so grateful for your reality check on low-income housing. It's real and painful. Don't drop this subject, though. I'm surrounded by ones who are blaming the problems on the poor themselves while ignoring the realities pointed out by brave ones like you. And Carol, you make an excellent point. While poor decisions can lead to economic hardships for families, some things are just not in our control. Sometimes we are at the mercy of an accumulation of policy decisions made without examining the trade-offs. More stringent energy efficiency requirements easily increase the hard costs to build a house. The theoretical cost savings to operate a house aren't part of the mortgage calculation, precisely because they are theoretical. They're based on assumptions about energy costs, which are subject to policy changes and wars in Ukraine and things outside of everybody's control. And the energy use is subject to personal proclivities. Are the occupants going to be a family with 3 teenagers taking long showers? Or a perpetually chilly old man who keeps the heat turned up to broil? Or is it going to be a couple who avoid air conditioning in summer and wear sweaters in winter with the thermostat set at 65 degrees max? There's no way to predict precisely what the energy costs are going to be for any one family. It's beyond what a banker or an appraiser can really realistically do. They have to look at just the cost of the building itself. Which brings me to another reader's comment who said, this is Hal, said, excellent article. As our politicians continue to place band-aids over many of society's ailments, homelessness, climate, and yes, affordable housing, while patting themselves on the back as saviors of the less fortunate, it's good to add a large splash of ice-cold water to their dialogue. I hope our local city council reads your column as they dither about 1,000% increases to fees. And Hal, I agree, there's too many band-aids. And too many things that sound good, but they aren't going to have the effect that's intended. And clearly there were critical stakeholders just not included in the conversation over the fee increases. A group seriously working on affordability for housing has to include the people who develop, build, and finance that housing. I did get a little pushback and feedback from Mike Baumgartner on my swipe at the North-South Freeway. We do agree on the regulatory impact. Mike writes, I agree with the premise of your column about government making affordable housing more challenging by impacting supply and cost through regulation and zoning, but I'm surprised that you picked the North-South Freeway as your lead evidence. By completing the freeway, a great deal of land in the north part of the county and beyond can be viably built on. The real issue is the urban growth boundary, government mandated high labor rates, and all the stupid extreme environmental regulations. So, Mike, I agree with you about the positive impacts of completing the freeway. Although there are some who would say that opening up more land to build outside the city limits is not a positive impact. But meanwhile, we're experiencing a lot of negative impacts. And I let off with that because it occurred to me that if WashDOT had been removing habitat for any other species but humans, I mean, turtles, they would have been required to provide mitigation by providing new habitat. And you see that along some highway projects where they've impacted some area of wetland, and so they've created a new artificial wetland someplace else. Why weren't they required to do that for affordable housing when they took out all those houses along out near the Freya exit where Camp Hope is taken over? And anyway, one last bit of reader feedback from Jim P. He said, "Good column today. Here's a suggestion. Eliminate all the government red tape and fees, and I'll bet any good home builder can build a house that employed low-income families can afford. Zero down federal 30-year loans make it possible. Further, it is vital that these homes be built to good quality construction standards. No junk that falls apart in 10 years becoming a slum. This is doable if we get the government and loan vultures out of the way." Well, loan vultures might be a bit strong, but I have to admit I have a file tucked away labeled appraisers for murder mystery. I was keeping those as ideas for victims in a future murder mystery novel. I started that file when we were getting appraisals done to build a house, and that was over 20 years ago. But the most frustrating appraisal was the one who refused to consider a fully finished walkout daylight basement as primary living space, insisted we had too many windows in our budget. That's because the daylight basement had windows on 3 sides, and he was only counting the square footage of the upper floor. So we had it's like a house half the size of what it really was. Then he sniffed superciliously to say that I was thinking about it like an architect. I still wonder how else you're supposed to evaluate a building if not by looking at it as architecture. You're supposed to look at it as a veterinarian. At any rate, and on second thought, maybe it was the appraiser who came to look at the house that we live in now. It's in an agricultural zone. It's a ranch. And then he said we couldn't get a residential loan because there were goats in the barn and we were clearly making a living in agriculture. Big surprise. But apparently there is a federal rule that normal home lenders cannot make home loans to farmers who are actually farming. So the only thing you can do is get turned down 3 times and then go to the Farm Credit Bank system. And that's would be an obscure rule. You don't have to convince me that the entire system for lending on homes has some archaic and obscure rules that affect the affordability of financing. The regulatory processes that developers battle are another cost driver. That one is in the direct control of government. And as an architect, I'm quite aware of the shortcuts affecting quality that can undermine the long-term value of a home. But they may be tempting because builders know the price point they have to hit to meet the market. They're not trying to make homes that people can't afford. So to wrap it up, any stakeholder group working on housing affordability issues and housing quantity issues, just getting more houses built, whether in the city of Spokane, Spokane County, any other county, the state of Washington, if that group doesn't include input from bankers, developers, landlords, and builders, and really listen to that input, as well as the buyers and the tenants, it's going to miss the target for affordable housing. So thanks for joining me on this edition of Forthright. And now that I'm back from vacation, I'll be working at posting at least twice a week again. Please subscribe on Substack with or without making a pledge if you'd like emails notifying you of new material.